glad to welcome our moderator for this evening's panel discussion back to the 92Y stage. Art critic and filmmaker Amai Wallach, born in New York to German Jewish exiles, is currently completing a historical memoir on the generational fallout of their ordeal and exile. Her articles have appeared in the New York Times, Smithsonian, and Art in America, and she was an art commentator for MacNeil Lehrer NewsHour. She is co-director of the highly acclaimed documentary on Louise Bourgeois, and she is now in post-production for a film on Soviet-born artists Ilya and Emilia Kabakov. She will introduce our panel tonight. Please join me in welcoming Amai Wallach and all of our guests.
Welcome to all of you. I should start by telling you that Serena Shaw, she's making a film right now about Kulthum, who's kind of the mother of Egypt, a singer who transfixed millions, suddenly had to meet. She's filming in Egypt, and she had a ticket back here and suddenly had to meet with her producers. She was born in Iran, and she was, as a teenager, she was sent here to be with her sister, who was getting married and was marooned by the Iranian Revolution, and never made it back to Iran until 1990, at which point the entire landscape, in every way, was transformed by the chador, which became her metaphor, so that her art is really a poetic dealing with the issues of her childhood, her exile, and what was going on in the Arab world, which we can talk about later, but that is certainly in this film, which she made in 2001, before 9/11, but she made it in 2001 when unrest was spreading in every way throughout the Arab world. I'm happy for all of you who have foregone the Big Giants game tonight. Thank you, although maybe you're not the audience for it, but I will tell you that there was an article in the Times yesterday on the 49ers linebacker Patrick Willis, and he had two men who called him dad because one had drug problems and he was taken away from him, but the Times described that dad as having a face worn from a lifelong battle with optimism. And to me, that jibes with one aspect, at least, of the art in connection to the subject we're going to talk about today: trauma, oppression, and art. We'll explore the ways in which art responds to catastrophe, history, and attempts to make sense of them and escape them, build on them, or transcend. The connections are as old as man's first cave paintings or songs. They're in the tragedies of the Greeks, the hellish, hilarious, terrifying paintings of Hieronymus Bosch really are in some ways only a little bit more fantastical than the terrors of the life in the Middle Ages. Or take Vermeer in the 17th century, living in Delft. Lawrence Weschler is a wonderful writer who went to the Serbian war crimes trial and wrote about it. And after listening to day after day after day of atrocities you cannot even imagine, he asked the judge at the war crimes trial, "How do you take it?" And the judge said, "Well, that's easy. I go to the Moritz house and I look at the Vermeers." And Weschler pointed out that when Vermeer was growing up and painting, all the world was Bosnia. He grew up during the 30 Years' War, in which foraging and looting mercenary armies decimated the Low Countries. There was famine, there were atrocities of every kind. Then there were the religious wars, and there was the brutal invasion by the French. And out of this, Vermeer created these still moments of domestic respite in this limpid light. And behind them, there would often be these maps. And so people at that time would get the reference. They would understand that he was making peace within this horrific world. And I think that Alex later on is going to show us a Vermeer, not in this connection, but in his own. But there's so many responses to adversity and trauma and war, from Goya's 3rd of May and the disasters of war, Picasso's Guernica, William Kentridge's more recent animated drawings with his very personal experience of coming to terms with being a white South African, even if he was on the right side, but grappling with the guilt of apartheid and after. And then, of course, there's our panel tonight, and we're very fortunate to have them. Each panel member is going to remind you of the art they've made with a short, no more than 5-minute presentation. I'm going to be very much of a dictator about this because it's wonderful to see the art, but then it's only to put them in context for you, and then we're going to really have a very good discussion between all of us. So I'm going to start with Geshe Muthu. She was born in Nairobi in Kenya in 1972, and she came to New York to study fine arts and anthropology at the New School, Parsons, and eventually Cooper Union. She took an MFA from Yale in 2000, and since then her work has been shown in museums around the country, not to mention the Pompidou and the Tate. She was Deutsche Bank's Artist of the Year in 2010, which included an exhibit at the Deutsche Guggenheim in Berlin, and she was cited for her synthesis of horror and beauty, surreal poetry, and social criticism. So I told Geshe that I would introduce her as an artist from a wounded continent who made art about universal wounds, particularly as it pertains to the human body, and she replied that she thinks America is more wounded. So this is something we'll take up later. Here's Geshe Muthu.
Thank you for that introduction. I'll try to live up to it. So this is the first image I'm going to start with, and I'll try to be quick, otherwise I'll get the cutoff. So this image is from I'll read it out. March 1992, women protest illegal detentions, imprisonment and torture.
I'm going to interrupt 1 minute. Can you see everything with us in front of it? Okay.
Okay. Women protest illegal detentions, imprisonment and torture with a curse, exposing their motherly bodies to the accosting police. So what was happening at this time is President Daniel Arap Moi had been in power since 1978, and since the coup in '82, he had slowly and viciously become a very effective dictator, and a lot of people were being... Me? Okay. Into the mic? Ah, okay. I thought this contraption was helping me out. So this is 10 years after the dictatorship. President Moi is completely, well-trained as a dictator. A lot of people are being imprisoned, tortured, and these women and their families had been sitting in front of this one particular building that was rumored to be a torture building. Of course, when the dictatorship came down, it was proven that it was a torture building, and they were praying and meditating and holding the space so that their children would either be released or tried in a fair way. And this one particular moment, they sent in the riot police, and this very unusual occurrence happened. And I didn't witness this. I wasn't in the city when it happened, but I did see it on television, and I remember thinking how absolutely powerful and magical and unusual of a gesture that these women would remove their clothes in a manner that, from an African, a Kenyan perspective, means that they are shaming the children who are in front of them, and these children being these policemen who are about the age of their own children. It is a taboo. It's seen as very disrespectful, very... it's not a good thing to see your mother naked, not to see her breasts, her genitalia as an adult. So this was a very provocative but powerful image for me, and I remember thinking, this is the power of the female body. The police scattered, and many things unraveled as a result, but it was one of those moments where I understood what I was going to end up doing. This is a piece called Fat Legs, and they're actually made at a time when I was quite homesick and thinking about this same maternal body that these mothers, these women that I was nurtured by and raised by have. And so I made these pillows as sort of storytelling devices, but I also wanted them to be somewhat an object to kind of trigger certain thoughts. And they look severed, even though they're actually just pillows, they're cloth. stuffed with what pillows are stuffed with. At this time, I was using a lot of pillows from friends and relatives to make my sculpture, and I was boiling them, and out of this boiling of the pillows was coming this odor, this liquid, this stench, and this all this stuff that was inside the pillows that comes out when you sleep. The sweat, the saliva, the mucus, all of that came out, and the smell was horrific, but it was very interesting to me that the dreams also came out of the pillows, and I felt like I was working with dreams as well. So these kind of objects led me to sort of experimenting when I was working in 2 dimensions. I always worked in collage, I always did watercolor, but I always played with the kinds of materials that I could put together. In this case, I used clay, mud, glue to make the Mud Girl series, and there are these pornographic images of black women, and they've all been kind of splattered on, and they're actually, and I've never really shown them in any exhibition, but they're part of a series of sort of a study in a way to sort of deal with a violation of the African female body that I see in media and in this particular form. At some point in my time in the United States, I remember thinking, there's this odd quiver, there's a far bigger population of African people in this city than I've ever seen before. Turns out it was a lot of French African people coming from Liberia, Sierra Leone, right after the war, after the mid-90s, all the way to around the time I came out of grad school. And so I also was aware of what was happening in Sierra Leone and Liberia, but what was very interesting to me is that they were obviously bypassing Europe to come to the US, and this is not people who speak English as even the colonial language. So I thought, this must be, it's so desperate of a situation that one would have to go this far to run away from whatever's happening. But on top of that, what was very sad and interesting to me was that a lot of the people who were coming to the United States through asylum from these countries had maimed and mutilated limbs, because the militia was using that as a way of gaining attention, as a way of violating people and scaring them, and also as a signature, because a lot of times violence comes with a particular aesthetic signature. So in this particular pinup series, I'm going from using sort of media, fashion pictures and watercolor imagery, and mixing that kind of discussion of the sort of the fakery of glamour with this other discussion of where these minerals come from, where these raw products come from, and what happens in these countries as a result of the diamonds, the gold, the oil being extracted out of the earth, is that there's such inequities exposed in the economic and the political and the social lives that are that it inevitably ends up that these countries have war. These countries are always unstable, and in Kenya, luckily, we don't have any precious metals. We don't have oil. We don't have these issues. So this pinup series has a lot of these mutilated females, and they're all from magazines, and they all have this kind of sort of posed but wounded aspect to them. This is Arachnid Curse, Royal Blue Arachnid Curse, which is a time when I'm sort of expanding and enlarging the work, still using the female figure, still working with the idea of what the wound means through watercolor, opening up the inks to make these particular marks. But I also have this interest in sort of this woman being tied up by herself in a way, and this web that is her hair, that is everything that is surrounding her is also what is holding her together, but at the same time tying her down. And this image actually expands towards this installation, erasing infestation, and exercise in historical futility. I look at colonization a lot as an infestation of sorts, like this sort of foreign bacteria, these foreigners coming into a place and taking over in ways that create sort of ills, or or change the climate in a negative sense. So these walls that you see, these red marks that you see on the wall, are actually wounds. They're perforated into the wall using a hammer. I'm going to go real quick. Okay, so this is Sleeping Heads, another piece with wounds in it. And And these sleeping heads for me represented the sort of a sleeping leadership, both in the US at the time, I feel, and actually in a lot of our countries in Africa. A head-resting moment. This was right around when the war started, and there was a lot of decapitations going on, and that was a signature, another one of those signature, iconic, aesthetic ways that militias use to kind of ground who they are. I'm sorry, this is Backlash Blues there. My interest in Cyborg, the machine, and the replacement of body parts with these machines, with this kind of motorbike. And this is Oh Madonna. I'm going to move on because I really want to show, these are heels with oil drums. I really want to show this final piece. Sorry for kind of rushing at the last minute, and I just guess I press play. Ah, no.
90-second one.
Yeah, no. Let me see if I can get back to that. Ah, there it is. Okay. No, it doesn't. Can you help me out? Tech person? So go back to that screen, and then I don't know how to press play. Thanks for bearing with me on that one. Oh, there you go.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's coming on. It's pretty short, so it'll be. Is there sound? Thank you.
Thank you, Geshe. So I'm going to do Alex Melamede next. I'm sorry, but we are going to have to hurry this up because if we continue like this, it'll be 8:30 and we won't have had any discussion. So, and that's the important part, although to see this is so strong, this is such strong work, that's a very big treat as well and a very important thing. So Alex Melamede was born in Stalin's Soviet Union in 1945, and he took part in the Jewish Soviet diaspora, arriving in this country via Israel in 1978. It's hard to exaggerate the role that Alex Melamede and his partner in art, Vitaly Komar, played in the dangerous game of avant-garde experimentation in the deadening and oppressive last decades of the Soviet Union. Their art was so pointed, direct, and ridiculous that it showed a way to undermine overweening power through imagination and ridicule. Soviet banners and posters were an easy target, as in their poster to the circle, the square, the triangle, which were all geometric shapes from the band avant-garde of the revolution. When they were first refused exit visas, they created a trans state, complete with currency and passport control and the whole works, to make fun of the whole thing. In this country, they turned their evil eye on Stalin's socialist realism, but they also used it to skewer power here, painting Ronald Reagan in high Soviet style as a satyr. And since the artistic divorce of Komar and Melamede in 2003, Alex Melamede has continued in this vein, making beautiful classical paintings of such heroes of capitalism as hip-hop stars and Russian oligarchs, and proposing art as a religion, and now, as he will tell you, a primary source of healing. Alex Melamede.
Well, thank you. It would be very hard to talk after these powerful images we've just seen, because, you know, I always had a totally different attitude towards art, because I always thought that art is one of the most ridiculous, spooky, and idiotic religions, like Mormonism, something like that. It's a totally opium for the people, as they say, and which pretends that it can resolve some problems of yours, personal or social, but actually it serves our great capitalist system and serves our vanity and our quest for money and fame. But of course I don't know how to start this, this machine. Okay, you see, but I have help. So a couple of years ago I realized that I'm kind of, oh. No, you cannot see it. I realized that I'm kind of a god, you know. So I realized that maybe I have this amazing, enormous power enormous power, and the work which I did with my partner, collaborator, which I'm not working with anymore. So it was Stalin. There is a muse which is tracing the shadow of Stalin. Because, you know, thinking about art as a spooky and idiotic religion, I was always taken back to earth, because Stalin thought otherwise. He thought that art is a real powerful tool. It's a really great way to kind of manipulate people, a great way to work with people and convince them about something, about his ideas. And that was really a strange thing, because people really, he said at once, actually, I think it was Stalin who said that artist is an engineer of the human souls, which meant at that time, of course, engineers were kept in a high esteem at that time, and they were building the H-bomb, the A-bomb, you know, all this military thing, and engineers were needed. So Stalin supposedly believed that artists can, or art itself can manipulate, can really construct a new human being or improve a human being. That was really good. So in a way, from my childhood on, art was, you know, kind of bumped up in my head, you know, they said art is good. And when I came here, I've heard the same thing. They said art is really good. Again, you know, this is the New York Times clip which says about this Russians disrupt modern art show with bulldozers. So I was very privileged to take part of this event. So there was, we the artists brought art, and then bulldozers came. So again, that how this power, the Soviets understood art. As much as they understand it here, that art has this power that can really dangerous. It can be dangerous, or can be nice, or whatever. But at that case, they thought about the danger of artists. When we came here, I just conducted a poll, consumer research about the taste of American public. So I hired a company which conducted this research. And so I went with the numbers, and I painted this painting. This is the best American painting, which is painted according to the numbers given to me by the pollsters. I did it in 17 countries, actually, Kenya included, but I didn't bring it, sorry, the slide of that. But this one is an all-American beauty, you see. So the next slide will be like that. But, you know, the real American beauty is not, of course, this landscape, because some people don't believe what American beauty is. That's the real American beauty, you see? And it's amazing, you know. I don't know which one you prefer the best, the previous painting or this photograph. But then I decided, you know, to join this Occupy movement, you know, which was done actually before that, was 4 years ago. It says, art collectors, beware, we're watching you. This one is a dispatch art speculators. So I'm trying to improve this, you know, American way of life. But now, lately, I am a healer, you see. I now believe that art can heal people. Because if it doesn't heal people, so what is it good for then, you know? What is this for at all? So, and what I'm doing here in this picture, I what I'm doing here, yeah, I'm project images of great art on a human anatomy, you see. And then people got healed, really amazingly, amazing results come out of this. Here you see the machine built, you know, which projects art and light and stuff. You see, if you have a problem with your leg, you can project the image of Rembrandt, and the pain goes away. Here is a really nice image, you know. There's something wrong with this woman, of course. And when you project this, one of the greatest, or maybe the greatest one, by name Van Gogh, you know the results, yeah. You understand what the results can be, yeah? Anyway, so now, so I'm trying to be as fast as I can. And this one, the yoga in a museum, that's really good. So I'm bringing people to museums and they perform yoga. Because these two powerful tools, yoga and art, really work in sync and they produce amazing results, you know. This image I have to see. Unfortunately, this is not realized. Before it was a real thing. It's a Simon Norton Simon Museum, yeah, in California, of course, in California. So they know better. Yeah, this one is a cardiovascular, you know, so in front of paintings. That's really, really good, really. Now I'm working in, I'm an artist in residence at the Queen's Health Hospital. So if you have any problems, actually, I have my private practice as well, of course. So if you have any problem, so you can always get to me. You have to go to this, the website, which will tell you the whole truth, and it's arthealingministry.org. Thank you so much.
Okay, so you see that out of trauma can come many different kinds of art. The next is going to be art by Christophe Bedico. He was born in Warsaw during the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising in 1943, and he grew up in the Poland of the Soviet occupation. Wikipedia describes him as an industrial designer and a tactical multimedia artist. He is first and foremost an artist who employs every relevant technology to an exploration and revelation of the themes of war, conflict, trauma, memory, inhumanity, and alienation in the public sphere. He's primarily interested in exposing the reach of power. He sees public buildings as embodiments of patriarchal power, and around the world has projected on them images designed to stop pedestrians short and make them think and talk about it. Ronald Reagan's hand over his heart, pledging allegiance on the AT&T building, signifying corporate connections. just before the 1984 elections, or a swastika on the temple facade of South Africa House in Trafalgar Square during apartheid. He's perhaps best known in New York for the homeless vehicles that gave people on the margins of society somewhere to sleep, but also to draw attention and tell their stories. Lately, he's been working with immigrants and with veterans of the Iraqi and Afghanistan wars. He's a professor at the Harvard Graduate School of Design. He directed the Interrogative Design Group at MIT and has taught a seminar on that subject, and particularly on the subject Trauma, Conflict, and Art at the Warsaw School of Social Psychology. So here's Christophe Bedico.
Yeah, just to switch. Okay. Good. Yeah, I try.
We need help.
Yeah. We need to have, because it's not on the screen. Oh.
This is totally unfair since everybody else's presentation was put on. Okay.
So I will briefly show the work that was presented here in New York more than a year ago, and it's an interior projection. It's an unusual thing for me to do because I usually project on the outside structures like facades and monuments and sculptural monuments and civic buildings. But this time I decided to project inside of the gallery. Galleries don't have windows. So what you see here actually are projected windows. Windows that are, the illusion of which are installed into this blank, the white cube of the gallery. So in fact, this project addresses the wall itself that separates us from the world outside. Those galleries are not having windows, have a foggy idea about what's happening outside. In fact, the project was not only to break that blank wall and install the windows which will see reality, but also to let us know that that in fact we don't really see that much. So it's showing what's behind, but also it's showing that there's a thick wall that separates those who know what war is and and those who don't. So those two societies are separate. And so this projection was showing exactly this. So you see you have windows of some kind of place where people hide, with the war leaking through those foggy foggy glass. There is a usual set of sounds coming from the street. Helicopter will depart. Children break the glass, innocent act. And something happens. The American patrol is being attacked, is ambushed. The snipers are attacking. The roadside bomb explodes. The child is hit, and the American soldier also wounded.
Anyone else get hit? Only Miller. Watch our six. Keep off our six. Who got that? 12 o'clock. 12 o'clock.
Shut that dog up.
Base, this is Alpha Vic 2. Base, this is Alpha Vic 2. Alpha, this is Base. What's your status? Vic 1's been hit. Roger. Taking fire. Roger that. One, this is non-ambulatory.
They got the chocolate kid.
That kid's hit. Tell him, you'll check.
Fuck the kid. Forget the kid. We gotta get out of here.
That kid's hit.
Come on, leave the kid. Let's go. Get Miller in here.
All right, we're picking him up. I got him. Go, go, go.
Let's get out of here. RTB. Come on, let's go. RTB.
Sergeant, let's go.
So the patrol leaves. The wounded child is left. The women are screaming, swearing.
ليش هيك يصير؟ ليش هيك صار بينا؟ شو سوينا لكم يا اولاد الكلب؟ احنا سوينا لكم. يا ابني يا ابني.
That's the name of the child, Yasmin. So the windows gradually go back to original state, as if they were healing themselves. But in order to actually become a beginning of the same repeated scene. Thank you.
I can't tell you how powerful it is to actually be in that room. The projection is so believable. It is as if you are in this bunker and these things are happening outside, and there are traumas on so many levels. I mean, there is a kid who's killed, there is a community that's destroyed, and can you imagine the soldier that left the kid, the soldiers that left the kid, the traumas that they are enduring. So this is trauma on every single level. Do you think art can make a difference in any, I'm going to throw this out to all of you. Can art actually make a difference to heal the kinds of trauma, or you say heal, but to address the kinds of traumas that all three of you deal with?
Even holy water can help people, you know. As long as you believe in that, it can, sure.
Would you like to address that, one of you? Yeah.
The holy water?
No, not the holy, forget the holy water.
No, I actually, I'm painfully optimist in the true sense. I do actually believe that that art has a place that is not, I don't think it's simply a place that it's just a medicinal healing thing, but that it creates, even if it is for the individual who makes the art, a place of solace and a place to address memory, to recreate history, to transform. I do believe that. I actually do believe that art has saved people, sometimes one person at a time. But I think it's such a wide question. I think so many different types of healing need to happen when things have been wounded or disrupted or hurt. So sometimes things look like they've been healed on the outside, and really there's just so much going on. And I think artists are actually amazing at, they find where the pus is and they let it out. And it's sometimes not, you don't want to see it, you don't want to smell it, but it's actually, someone needs to do that. And I think artists do it in a way that is effective, because it's not rational. It's not always, it's not scientific. It's like, it has to be a bit of a spell,
Well, actually, Christophe, you say that you're interested in trauma and democracy. What do you mean by that?
Well, it's a democratic process in many ways depends on the capacity of those who really know what's wrong, who live through what's wrong, to open up and share and project their experience and their critical vision based on it to others through public space. So the public space is in fact created in a moment when someone protests, when someone testes. Protest has an element testis, meaning witness. I witness what's wrong. I live through, in fact, what's wrong. Therefore, I am telling you this in hope that this will help to ameliorate the situation, to move it to better. So I belong to that minority. And so I don't want my experience to be private. I want to be public. So art in public space and cultural projects as well can create conditions under which people who are traumatized by the very experiences they should share with others to help change to happen, to actually do so, speak. But on condition that this project has a developmental aspect, meaning that it's a situation in which someone is learning step by step how to open up and speak against the fact that hearing oneself speaking already affects the throat is being closed because it's too difficult to find words, and emotionally charged words for experience. So, in other words, we have here two kind of therapies. One is the therapy of the person who is kind of using public space as a process to move from private confession to public testimony and regain certain distance to one's own experience, speak on behalf of others, become agents for change. That's a process of healing, of which Judith Herman speaks in her book.
Who does? I'm sorry.
Judith Herman, Trauma and Recovery. That's one therapy. And another therapy is that those healing themselves in public space, they also heal others, and meaning the numbness of others is being healed. The lack of the interest and imagination. In other words, there is the distance between those who went through difficult situation and those who are in better situation is decreased. So there is a possibility of discourse that may also lead to change. So we have two healings possible, and art and cultural process can do so. I think it's possible, even if it's very, very difficult, and it takes time, and it requires development of trust, a certain climate that is suitable for step-by-step seeking a means of expression in public space. So public space is both clinical and political. And cultural projects are very important, a chance for that space to operate this way.
That's, Alex, but you think that art and humor are very connected.
Yeah, I mean, it's not humor, man. It's a dismal, it's a desperation. You know, it's interesting. Everyone mentioned the therapy and the different permutations of therapy. I remember this a line from one of the Russian books written by a very great Russian writer, non-fiction, Nadezhda Mandelstam. And she was talking about her youth and about, not youth, she was young then, in the 30s. And she said about someone, she said, he was very lucky, he was not imprisoned, he was not sent to the Gulag. He was dying of cancer, very slowly and in terrible, torturously. A lucky man, yeah, or not? So I'm now have this healing practice at the hospital in Queens, which is in Jamaica, Queens. And there's some bad neighborhoods, you know, in Jamaica, Queens. And I think we don't need to go to Africa or to some other, you know, exotic places to see how miserable people are, you know. And art or no art, it cannot change anything. And they don't know anything about art. God bless them. And that's what it is, because we live in this cocoon, you see. You show in the best galleries in New York, you show in the best galleries in New York, you teach at Harvard, you know. Take a walk to Jamaica, Queens, okay? So the point is the suffering is the everyday occurrence, you know. Either it's by the government will or not. It's your own suffering, you know. And cancer is worse than any gulag, you see. And the treatment from cancer is even worse than the cancer itself. So people, the doctors make you suffer, you know, in order to heal you. It's the same thing which happened in the Soviet Russia and all over. They torture you in order to heal you, okay? So the point is, there's a universal language of art, and it speaks to everyone, or it's just a part of a certain group of people who entertain themselves with art. Again, you know, under Stalin, we understood that art had, or after that, we understood that art plays a very important role. Stalin himself was taking care of, I mean, calling great poets and stuff. He paid them really well as well. So this bulldozer show, which I showed this clip from about, it's the same thing. The government was against us, was trying to dispel, they believed in that. What I see now, you know, it's an attempt to make art relevant and make, to show suffering again. But to show suffering, it's, you show it to this audience, you know, which doesn't care about this. They care about, I show this slide of this Miami Beach enterprise, you see. So anyway, it's a long story, of course. But again, you know, either it's a religion and you believe in that and you can be healed by that, or it's a nonsense. And it's both, I think. I think it's more nonsense than the religion. But I mean, some people think otherwise.
Did you want to say something? Yes.
No, just wanted to clarify one detail about my own project, because you mentioned the gallery. Well, those people whom we heard on the other side, they're actual soldiers who actually went through that very situation that is being reconstructed as if it was happening on the other side of the gallery wall. So that it's not...
Why gallery then?
Because there are masses of people going to those galleries,
right.
And it's actually a free access. You don't pay. So why not taking seriously that public. Most of my work is done outside of the gallery, but I consider gallery also public space. And in fact, there's so much of experience that those people have with those galleries where they only see things that are inside, that just to expose how much they don't see, meaning using visual means to also show how much you don't see that is outside of that gallery. So that was one of my objectives. And working with people who actually went through this hell, even those women who are there screaming. So they also reconstructed the situation. Perhaps it helped them as well.
You know, I just had a studio for a long time on Canal Street, and my motto was, it's better to die on the barricades on Canal Street than a nursing home in New Jersey.
You're right. Well, Geshe, you talked about letting out the pus, of the trauma, that an artist can let out the pus of the trauma. But what strikes me is that these were traumas that you experienced to a certain extent because you were there, but they were traumas that you read about or saw and then took into yourself. And it was interesting because Walid Rad is a wonderful, brilliant Lebanese artist who was, at 14 years old, his parents shipped him out of Beirut to America because he was just at the age where the militias would have kidnapped him and ruined him as a human being. And I asked him to suggest some artists who had actually lived through traumas. And he said, actually, I think sometimes the people who lived through the traumas are less able to express them than people who saw them secondhand. Do you buy that?
I don't know if I buy that, but I do believe that we are all related to every war, every tragedy, every issue that occurs. I think we all have a hand in it. We all have a way of somehow we've participated. I believe that we own everybody's Holocaust, everybody's genocide, everybody's they're all ours. So I don't think of it as I don't think you have to be traumatized directly in order to empathize. And compassion and art and beauty and ugliness and all these things that come out of trying to describe to another human being what humans are about, it can be done without you don't necessarily have to be behind the gun or in front of it. And I think that's my work. Sometimes I've played with the idea of being not the oppressor, but the one who's actually violating. I've tried to work through it in my mind, what goes through another human being's body when they look in someone's eyes and try to disappear them, or and it's not a game. It's just that sometimes it baffles me that these things happen, partly because we all assume that we're in this age of civilization, and we are, we have tremendous access to what is going on pretty much everywhere, and yet we still use the most primitive forms of discussion and dialogue to negotiate and to dispute things, and we still have borders, and we still have all of these very, very archaic forms of describing one another. So I think inside of us each and every one of us, there's a little monkey who's unable to resolve things in a humane way when it comes, when you're put in a certain situation. And in particular for me, that point became very clear during after the genocide in Rwanda, because of the relationship between the two nations, the two factions, the two people, how closely they were bound together, living together. The issues were there, and they'd been woven into many parts of the culture. The Belgians and the French had come in and exaggerated things and made it worse, the differences. But still, these are people who had been living together. And I think what was really, really appalling, but yet very fascinating, was the stealth, this 100-day genocide, which was done very intimately. It wasn't done with, weapons of mass destruction or anything. It was done with something that you hold in your arm, like a paintbrush or, a bottle of glue. And it was knives, pangas, machetes, and clubs. So every moment that you took that person closer and closer to death, you felt it if you were the killer. And the perpetrators are, in some ways, you could say, are just as tortured as those that they killed. So, but I see that as a metaphor for a larger problem that we sort of exist in, which is that we're culpable, that we should take into consideration that it is possible to turn around and become that very soldier who left that child there, given the conditions and the lack of knowledge or whatever was buried inside these young men that made them do that. So that's how I approach my work.
I wish we could go on and on. There's so many issues we've opened up here, but we have such a limited amount of time, so that I'm going to open it up to questions from you people. And I hope you have. There's actually someone here, Nicholas is his name, whose grandfather was at Terezin. I don't know if maybe we can have some lights on the audience to see if anybody has any questions for up here. Yes. And say it loud and short, okay?
I don't have a question right now, but thank you.
Oh, you're Nicholas. Okay, Nicholas, stand up, Nicholas.
Okay.
There. Okay, someone else. Yes.
Yeah, as people who create aesthetic experiences, what are your thoughts on the preponderance of like avatar games, like World of Warfare or video games that are meant to like recreate the experience of being in warfare as like a chosen, like something that people love to engage in as a kind of recreation? It's a very big thing in America. I don't know about the rest of the world, but what are your thoughts on that as like an activity?
Oh, I think it's a technique, and I think I used actually video game program for my project. So because that's a language that young people understand. It's just, I think maybe it's possible to design new games. One of which will be how to turn your enemy into your friend, or how to transform conflict from bloody to creative conflict, in which great new things can happen. I don't know. And the sense of humor, I think it's also important. That is to ridicule some of the patterns and seriousness of all those culture of war. Culture of war is an extremely serious thing. So I really like, I think, because it reminds me that this Derek Winnicott, the psychoanalyst, was asked once by pastors, Anglican pastors, at what point they should send their clients to him. And he said it's very simple. When they bore you, send them to me. So this lack of sense of humor is a symptom of possible psychological difficult conditions. So
be careful, young man.
I'm supposed to have told what the question was because this is being webcast, and the question was about video games, obviously. Yes, is there another question? Yes, right there.
Do you think that there's a qualitative difference in what the art looks like when it is either born of someone who has experienced deep trauma and then maybe somebody who hasn't quite experienced that kind of level of trauma, and if there is sort of a theme of trauma in the work. So that is to say, if a person is creating art to work through their own personal trauma, how is that different?
So the question is there a difference with work that was actually made by someone working through their own personal trauma or someone making work about trauma? And I'll say two things to that quickly. One of them is Louise Bourgeois always had a saying, which is art is the definition of sanity. She had many personal traumas starting in the First World War, and art was how she stayed sane. But also, Christophe, I know that you said that when you were in this space of this last piece you showed, you realized that you had actually been in a space like that as a very young child, right, in Warsaw. Will you explain that?
Yeah, and that was also, I learned similar reaction from many other people, that it reminds them something that they went through or their parents went through when they were babies. So somehow that hiding. So I think, yes, it's true that one could, consciously or not, develop the work that helps to deal with traumatic past and memory, and somehow explore it and take charge of it using aesthetic means to elaborate on it, and in that way create some kind of self-healing situation. But doing so, one could also heal others. So I think healing oneself may heal others,
What
and
is
the opposite.
What does aesthetic means? Can you explain to me? What is that? You said using aesthetic. What is aesthetics? What is that?
What does it mean to you?
What does it mean in the first place? Because we use a lot of words, you know, we presume they make some meaning, but I'm not sure these words have meanings. What is aesthetic means? As opposed to non-aesthetic means, I suppose.
I think it's something to do with attempt to find form and expression for something for which there is
Now it's easy, it's video, you know. If you want to be in a gallery, use video.
Okay.
There is only aesthetic form which exists now.
You think?
I mean, mostly...
What about collage, for instance?
Listen, the fact that you have such terrible experience with Stalinism and the way Stalin was using art...
Art has nothing to do with...
There is no possibility of art being a powerful means to do something good.
Art has nothing to do with personality. Art is about bigger issues, about God, about certain things which have nothing to do with you. That's a totally misunderstanding of art. When I teach, I try to explain to every student that it's not about you, it's about the higher power. If art exists, and that means, you know. Look at Raphael, Leonardo, even Jackson Pollock. And it has nothing to do with you. That's the problem of being an artist, I understand. How to get from yourself into the bigger world, into the bigger issues.
Okay, but just 1 second. When it comes to difference between traumatic expression or speech and post-traumatic, there is a difference. Those who actually move into public testimony, they become some kind of artists because they try to find words and form for extremely difficult experiences and try to do it with emotional charge.
Emotional honesty.
And so that means
from
a very dry and kind of report of what happened, they move into more and more of an expressive transmission of their memory and can share it. So they also recognize that other people, not only themselves, so they are less and less kind of self-centered. They see themselves in different role of those who are performing something. So I think there's not maybe art, but there's an artistic element in expression and a transmission of something very difficult.
And what do you think about it?
Are you going to jump in here?
What do you think about it?
I'm not going to jump in here.
Okay. So I mean,
jump in another one.
Okay. So I think that the answer to your question is in the range of work here. I think you can't say what art looks like that somebody who's experienced trauma looks like or somebody who not. The range of expression here, I think, is answer enough. And we have time for one more question. Yes, is there a question? Am I missing somebody? Yes.
I want to say a preamble first and then ask questions. The healing can be of two kinds. Palliative, that is to distract from the pain, or it can be restorative. And if the work is great, if the spectator is sympathetic, then the art can restore and not merely a palliative entertainment or a divertissement.
Do you have a question?
And the question is, now, for the artist, I think it is always restorative. So the question I want to ask each of you is, do you agree that art for the creator is restorative? And if you agree with my second statement, that the greatness of art depends on, or the greatness of art is demonstrated by the work being restorative or merely palliative.
So the question is she made a statement that art can be palliative or it can be restorative, and that only the greatest art is restorative. And is it restorative for the artist? I think that we're getting in really murky waters here talking about greatest art.
It's good to be in murky waters.
Does anybody want to address this? I think that I can't see you very well, but I think that you are the person who is behind the entire Territ Scene program. Am I correct?
No, you are only partly correct. The question, simple question I want to ask is art for the creator restorative?
Okay.
For each of you? And
Okay.
the answer can be yes or no.
Okay. So, why don't Geshe, since you didn't get...
I did actually mention that I think for me it is very much, a meditation that keeps me sane, keeps me in touch with my humanity and others. So I think it is restorative. And I think for a lot of people it is. I think even the absurd and the satirical and the obnoxious and all those techniques, those are forms, those are ways of expunging internal and complicated issues and things. And I'm all for what you're saying, except for the fact that you think Africa is a cesspit. But I do believe...
Really? Did you say that?
I said it?
No, you were saying something about Africa having all manner of problems. But I do honestly believe in the way you're approaching.
I didn't say that, believe me.
You didn't say that. I'm making my words into what I understood you saying. No. And I also believe that there is that sincerity is restorative in people who are very clear about...
I call it neo-sincerity.
Neo-sincerity.
Right.
Yes, because you're young.
Yeah, sure, that's why, sure.
Because neo-sincerity, as Art Spiegelman defines it,
right.
is, I take from Gogol, and Gogol said the difference between the cosmic and the comic is a single letter. And on that, we will say good night. Thank you so much.
But I'm sorry, guys. If you need any healing, I have a small projector here. I can project a small image on your head. So
Actually,
come over to here.
Right. Anybody who wants to come up on stage or to the stage, he will project like a Vermeer or something on your forehead and heal you.